Nowadays in Dead by Daylight, when you are the final survivor left in a trial, the hatch will spawn. The hatch acts as an alternate way of escaping if the exit gates are inaccessible, and can be a great way of sneaking out of the trial when you're the last alive without the killer noticing. In the current patch of Dead by Daylight, the hatch is able to be closed by the killer if they find it before you do, which then activates endgame collapse. Once the bar at the top of your screen runs out and you haven't found an exit, the entity will eat you and you will have lost the game. Once the hatch has been closed, the only way to escape through it is by opening it with a key that you can find in a chest or bring it with you before the match starts. But the hatch didn't always work this way. Before endgame collapse got introduced to the game in 2019, killers were completely unable to shut the hatch, which nearly every single game resulted in an ego battle between the killer and the survivor in a hatch standoff. Back in the early stages of Dead by Daylight, if a survivor jumped in the hatch while the killer was around, the killer was able to press their attack button to pull the survivor out of the hatch and hook them to win the game, which meant games back then would last forever until one player eventually backs down.
Funny story, I never lost a single hatch standoff.
Really?
I don't think that's a good thing, to be on the record. I don't think there's something to be proud of.
Before hatch standoffs were completely removed from the game, if a survivor didn't want to do a hatch standoff, they could indefinitely hide from the killer, again making games last forever. Hatch standoffs were a part of Dead by Daylight until 2019, almost 3 years. They were a part of the game that we look back on in hindsight and realize how broken they truly were. And I'm sure everyone can say that they're glad that the endgame collapse update completely removed hatch standoffs forever. Although, hatch standoffs weren't the only thing that were created by not having endgame collapse. We didn't think much of it at the time, but not having endgame collapse was incredibly harmful to the game.
People remember the hatch standoff, but it wasn't the only one. There were a lot of situations where you could basically be in an ego battle with somebody else, and it could last indefinitely. Nowadays, the servers have a timer of 1 hour, and if the game doesn't end in 1 hour, the game will be ended automatically. This was introduced so that cheaters couldn't hold people hostage indefinitely, right? But back in the day, there was no such thing. So there were a lot of situations where you could be stuck. Like if a survivor was caught in a corner and the killer camped, you were stuck there indefinitely. Not even 1 hour, just indefinitely.